Hello friends, welcome to the M.A.R.E podcast. Before we get started, you can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Don't forget that you can find more about the M.A.R.E project at www.marehamburg.com, and you can support the project and this podcast through Patreon. All the links are in the description. Enjoy! Hello friends, welcome to another episode of the M.A.R.E podcast brought to you by the Honor Frost Foundation. Happy New Year everyone! It's 2026, another year of success, I hope, for everyone, and let's hope for the best this year. So, in this episode, I have with me Vera Noon. Hello Vera, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, George.
So, Vera, I'm very excited for this episode because this will be a bit different than what we do usually. Will be so archaeology heavy, but it will be very maritime heavy and marine heavy, I promise you. So, Vera, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners of this podcast?
Of course. Thank you, George, for having me. I know about the world of M.A.R.E since quite a while, so I'm very happy to be on board this podcast. So to tell a little bit my story, I will go back to the 90s. So my name is Vera Noon. I'm Lebanese. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia because my parents fled Lebanon because of the war. And I later moved to Lebanon, and my academic career started taking a few very interesting turns since then. So I started with studying architecture in Lebanon, and slowly I switched to the world of the ocean. So after studying architecture and working in architecture for quite a few years, I studied marine spatial planning, which was an Erasmus Mundus international program. So for those of you who don't know, Erasmus Mundus is it's basically a fund that is given for international students to study in 4 different countries, a 2-year master program. So I studied marine spatial planning in 2 years in 4 countries. And after that, I specialized a little bit more in sustainable blue economy. So I will explain all of those later on. I'm just giving you a brief overview. And I'm currently doing a PhD at the University of Edinburgh at the School of Archaeology. And I will talk about my PhD later on. I just wanted here to mention the Honor Frost Foundation, which was generous enough to fund my PhD studies at the University of Edinburgh. So this is a very quick overview of my academic career. I can also talk a little bit about professionally, if you
Absolutely, please do. Please do.
So as I mentioned, I started with architecture in Lebanon. So architecture is very technical. I used to go to construction sites. I used to supervise the building of homes and villas. I used to choose tiles with the clients. So that was a very nice world. However, little by little, I started feeling I wanted to do something more environmentally friendly, something that is not building, but really conserving the environment. So I studied green building, and after studying marine spatial planning, I worked in urban planning and design. So here it was more about working in coastal developments, in planning marine areas in the Gulf and different countries around the world. And following that, I worked in consultancies on marine-related topics. So basically, you can try to protect the ocean and save the ocean through different channels. It can be what we call bottom-up. So bottom-up, you're really starting with the people, you're working with education, you're working with the general public, and you're trying to create change from the bottom all the way up. And the other way you can create change is what we call top-down. So top-down is really from decision-making perspective. You're working with policymakers, decision makers, authorities, governments, ministries. And so what I was doing first through a company and later through my own consultancy firm is basically try to work with these 2 directions, let's say, towards ocean conservation, which is a very, very wide world.
Okay, lots and lots of things.
Yeah.
A very, very, very interesting career so far, and I hope it gets more interesting as you in the future. But okay, let's sort out some blue economy. What is the blue economy?
So economy, as we all know, is just a lot of activities that humans are undertaking to create beneficial gain and to achieve specific objectives and offer services and products for humanity. Blue economy is what we can have from the ocean. So it started off as like, what can we take advantage from the ocean? So what are the services that the ocean is giving to us? What are the resources? What are the benefits we are getting? But that started to change because it moved to becoming sustainable blue economy, because it's not about just taking from the ocean, but giving back. It's taking sustainably in a way we can balance the development needs for humans and the conservation needs for the environment. So very roughly put, blue economy or sustainable blue economy is that attempt to create a balance between the needs of humans and the protection of the ocean. So having what we need, of course, with balance and moderation, whilst conserving the resources that the ocean is giving us for the future generations.
Okay. So what kind of resources do the oceans give?
The ocean gives us a lot of benefits and products and resources. So if we're going to talk about physical resources, we have oil and gas, we have minerals, we have water that is used for desalination, for example. We also have wind, which is used for energy recently. If we're going to talk about living organisms, of course, fish and all the seafood that is the basis of a lot of humans' food security around the world. There's also other services like well-being. So a lot of studies are trying to measure. I say measure because I don't want to say monetize. We measure the benefits that we can have from the ocean, such as well-being, health, happiness, joy. So there's the aesthetic value of the ocean. So this is something we get, but we cannot measure it. We cannot monetize it. We cannot quantify it. And if I want to summarize these in a terminology we use a lot currently in my field is what we call ecosystem services. So the ecosystem of the ocean, be it coastal, submarine, marine, all these words, and the services they are giving to humans. So we are benefiting a lot, even in ways we are not aware of. And on a more global way, the ocean helps regulate the climate. The ocean helps clean the air. If you know, we call the ocean or like seagrass, basically seagrass meadows and all these algae and all these natural ecosystems underwater, the Amazon of the blue world. So the ocean helps us produce oxygen. It produces more oxygen than the Amazon forest. So all of these are sometimes quantifiable, sometimes not, sometimes monetized, sometimes not. And it's all benefits that we are getting from the ocean.
I mean, it sounds like and I know I hope it's not news to people listening, but of course the ocean is super, super important for preserving life on Earth in a general scale. But like, I'm super curious to see how you can make oil and gas sustainable, for example, because is there a way to do that? Is it like realistically, or is it just like losses and wins on the outside?
Well, there is no absolute answer for that. What I know that my perspective changed towards that over the years. I used to think conservation and protecting nature is stopping human activities, is banning, this was very radical. And little by little, especially being realist, like I use plastic materials, I fly home quite often. So I will not say that we can absolutely phase it out immediately. Being sustainable is trying our best to take our needs and while minimizing the damage and restoring. So if we are to make first of all, we try to mitigate. So avoid any damage possible. And then if we must do the activity, we try to restore. So if we damage a certain ecosystem, we try to restore it, to bring it back to the way it was. So there is no absolute answer for this, or saying, no, we will not damage, but there are ways we can minimize the impact. And this is what we try to do even with renewable energy. And the damage is not only to the natural environment, but also the cultural heritage. which is something we can talk about.
Oh, we will talk about it right now. But yeah, it's beautifully put, and I'm really happy you're taking that approach, because even though I'm by no means specialist in any of that, I am also of the opinion, from what I read and what I see, that we cannot be absolute about these things, and we need to like take it easy, take a deep breath, and then proceed to do things and change things. But you mentioned cultural heritage, so let's dive right into it. So your PhD is basically studying, as I think I've read it on your honor frost page, the intersection of marine cultural heritage and within international and regional ocean literacy. So give us a summary. What is this? Explain to us what this world, this big sentence is.
I will first explain the terminologies used there. So ocean literacy, which sounds quite big, and ocean literacy is a movement that started about 2 decades ago. And it started very simply. There were a couple of teachers in the US that were like, we need to talk about the ocean and the curriculum. How are we going to do that? How are we going to integrate the ocean in the school curriculum? And that was like in the early 2000s. And these teachers came together and like, okay, this is how we can integrate the ocean. And then this movement started growing. It went out of the US, and then it traveled all the way to Europe. And then there was this coalition that was formed to say, how are we going to integrate the ocean and increase knowledge about the ocean in schools? And little by little, this really caught up, and it grew to become a global movement. And what was focusing on education in schools is now about also changing behavior. It's about emotional connection with the ocean, and it's no longer bound to school. It's about policymakers. It's about our parents. It's about the neighbors. It's about oil and gas experts. Ocean literacy became a movement to grow the awareness and the knowledge and the emotional connection to the ocean across the world. So this is the very brief definition of ocean literacy. Now, I was working in this field when I had the opportunity to apply for the PhD, and I wanted to work on marine cultural heritage because this was a topic I've tackled through architecture. I designed the Marine Archaeology Museum back in architecture school. And then when I studied marine spatial planning, I addressed the integration of heritage in the planning of our seas. And then I'm like, okay, I want to talk about heritage, but which lens will I use? And I realized that in ocean literacy, we're often focused on the marine life. Turtles, dolphins, Posidonia, how are we going to protect the natural environment? But very few talk about how are we going to talk about cultural heritage to the general public. So I'm like, that's a gap I can try and attempt to fill. So my idea is to understand how we can integrate heritage in this global movement that it was first centered on the natural environment, but that absolutely needs to talk about the cultural environment. And given the fact that I'm from Lebanon and that the funding is from the Honor Frost Foundation, which also focuses on the East Mediterranean, I will be focusing on the Lebanese case study, which brought with it a set of challenges, let's say, given the conflict situation and all of that. So I don't know if I answered more or less.
Of course. So okay. So let's take it step by step. So how many case studies do you have in Lebanon, or do you use everything and anything?
Thank you for your question. I'm in my second year, and this is the phase where I'm refining my case studies. So at first, I wanted to compare Lebanon to its neighbors. Okay, so I wanted to see how, because I'm focusing on conflict, and conflict has different forms and different stages. There are countries that are out of the conflict, countries that are in conflict, countries that are about to be experiencing conflict. So I wanted to compare with Palestine, with Syria, with Cyprus, because they all had different experiences with conflict. And then I realized it was maybe too much. So I'm going to just compare case studies within Lebanon. So at the moment, I have 3 case studies. And what is interesting in Lebanon is that although it's a very small country, you can find very drastically different experiences within that same country. And it is a Mediterranean country. We have 220 kilometers of coast. the major cities in Lebanon are located on the coast. The major historic cities in Lebanon are coastal. I think 4 or 3 out of 5 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Lebanon are coastal. So we have Byblos, we have Tyre, we have Sidon, and other important heritage sites, obviously Beirut and Batroun, and I think I mentioned, and Anfi, for example. So I decided to select 3 case studies, and these 3 have very different ways of living conflict or experiencing conflict and experiencing heritage, because the marine cultural heritage in Tyre is not the same as Beirut or Batroun, for example. So these are the 3 case studies I selected. And the demographics are different, the impact of conflict is different, and the type of heritage is different. Tyre, for example, which is a World Heritage Site city, Tyre used to be an island. And I discovered this very late in my life. And Tyre used to be an island until Mr. Alexander the Great decided, I'm going to conquer this island. And he built this kind of a bridge thing that the Tyrian people kept breaking until they couldn't. And with the years, the island became a peninsula, and the peninsula that we know today. And we have a lot of underwater heritage in Tyre, and a lot of, there's like a submerged city, pole, port, we don't really know. You can find, if you go today to Tyre, you find colonnades, graphite columns just lying around. So it's beautiful, it's a beautiful city. On the other hand, you have Batroun. Batroun is a beautiful sandstone, historic coastal town. You can smell the fish everywhere. You have a booming freediving community. Sponge divers are also historically present there. And then you have Beirut. Beirut is everything and nothing. And Beirut has a very big wound that is left from the port explosion, Maritime. And the people of Lebanon have not recovered. And there's this whole debate on what to do with the remaining structure of the silos, which are currently a landmark, and the value and the emotional value this monument carries. So between the sports activities that are part of the heritage of Batroun and the painful value that the sports silos carries, and the damage that is being done from the current war in the south of Lebanon to underwater heritage, there's a lot to look into.
Absolutely. But you used a very nice phrase there, experiencing heritage, which I like. I kind of like took a note in my head. So how do you personally experience heritage in Lebanon?
Ooh, very
Because
good.
you said you moved out, you grew up in Saudi Arabia, and then
Exactly.
you went back. So how do you experience this?
I have like everyone asks me, how did you get into the world of the ocean? And when you go into conferences, people say, I was born by the sea. I fell in love with the ocean the minute I went to that. No, I met the sea when I was like 16. And I was born and raised in a desert. It's no longer a desert, but Riyadh in the 90s was, you get out of the city and in 30 minutes you're surrounded by sand. So no, it was not born with me. It grew on me. And at first, my initial, the thing that made me fall in love first with the sea was swimming with the sea turtle in Batroun and diving within its caves. Heritage became a thing later on. Because I was not born and raised there, I felt I needed something to connect me to that land. And we have a lot of heritage sites in Lebanon. It's amazing. And what helped me get attached more and more to it is seeing how similar it is to other Mediterranean cities. And I find it fantastic that I can be in south of France or south of Italy or in Greece or in Lebanon, and there's this beautiful sandstone structures with the small fishing ports and all these red tiles and the green windows and the smell of the ocean and the sea and the fish. And the music is the same. So I fell in love in reality with the Mediterranean cultural heritage. And more as I started to be underwater. So this was a whole other thing. So heritage for me is we lack a common identity in Lebanon. Any Lebanese can tell you this. We don't have a national identity. And I often introduce myself as Mediterranean, not as Lebanese, because I find it gives me a sense of belonging to something bigger. And Lebanese, I am Lebanese. I love my Lebanese cultural identity, but I feel I belong to something bigger. And this is what Mediterranean cultural heritage is for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because obviously the Mediterranean Sea, right, and the sea connects rather than isolate. So I think it's very natural for you to feel this way, and it's very nice of you to feel this way. And it's even nicer knowing that you chose to kind of like put this into your overall research and overall world, and see more how you can make a difference for it through your through your research. So how many years is your PhD? Is it a 4-year program? Is it a 3 years?
Well, 3 years in theory, I hope.
I hope.
I'm in my 2nd year. Yeah, I wanted to add something that
Oh yeah, please.
we work a lot with marine restoration and natural ecosystem restoration. The thing is, nature can rebuild itself, heritage cannot. If you lose a 3,000-year-old ancient port destroyed because of land reclamation, because of bulldozers, you cannot bring it back. Corals, you can replant them. No, that's not the right word, but you can have breed corals.
Replant.
Yeah, they're animals, I'm not sure, but yeah, maybe you can replant them. Not at the same speed, but you can, you know. Seagrass meadows can be restored. Again, not same. You can replant a tree, but you cannot recreate the pyramids. You cannot recreate Baalbek, and you cannot recreate shipwrecks. You cannot recreate a historic Phoenician port. And this for me is an urgency. And that's why I am focusing now more on cultural heritage rather than natural heritage. And this is physical, tangible heritage. The intangible heritage is even more complicated. And as we are losing our elderly, as we are losing our traditional craftsmanship, we're left with nothing. So I feel there is a sense of urgency, and that's why I want to partially contribute to preserving and disseminating above all, because I'm not an archaeologist. I'm not here to physically preserve, but I want to disseminate. I want to tell the stories. I want to take it out of the archaeology world into the, public realm, let's say.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, this is where I was kind of getting at. Like, oh, you finish your PhD in 3-4 years, and how do you see your future? How do you see on doing all these wonderful things that should be done and should be done everywhere? So do you have a plan on how you want to do this?
This is a very existential question.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I have many ideas and theories, and this changes every time when you grow, when you change careers. At some point in time, I wanted to be in politics, and then I wanted to be in diplomacy, and art. I like to paint, so at some point I also wanted art to be part of how I contribute through painting, photography, or whatever. So I know I would like to contribute somehow. The how is evolving. It can be artistically, it can be through literature, through writing, through science. And most recently, the most concrete action I did is become an independent consultant. And this is what I'm currently doing, very partially now with the PhD. It's kind of hard to challenging to do both at the same time. But I created M.A.R.E because I wanted to have the liberty to address various topics of the ocean that are not necessarily related, but they're all united by one thing, which is the ocean and the role of humans amid all of that. So I see this moving forward. I want to integrate more art in it. The how is yet to be defined, but and I think the way is partially through education, as I mentioned before. It's the place that I feel we can have the most impact. But I do think we need to start reaching policymakers more and more, because I think the public is able to access information now, but policymakers are still floating there. They don't know what's happening. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how urgent it is. So I want to have a conversation with a couple of politicians and help create a change, a concrete change in Lebanon, hopefully, but also elsewhere if I can. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm very glad you're saying this, because I tend to see people kind of naturally inclined towards, my solution would be to throw a bunch of leaflets in schools and then let the kids grow up and become concerning adults. And my opinion on this is, okay, sure, do that. Go to schools, speak to children. That's important. But also there should be effort enough to put into talking with the adults and talking with the people, because we live in the situation right now, as you said, is very urgent. And maybe we can't leave it to chance and wait 30 years and see what happens, because then a lot of things would have happened by then, and it would be an even bigger problem and an even bigger urgency. So M.A.R.E, you said, that's how you called it. I wanted to talk a bit about this because I don't know, I haven't seen such initiatives much going around. Maybe it's me, maybe it's the world I'm involved in. I don't see it as much, but it's a consultancy, and you offer training, you offer consultancy, obviously, and everything. It's about heritage, all kinds of heritage, right? So do people respond to this? Do you have people coming in and asking for opinions?
So just to correct, it's not just heritage, it's everything ocean. Heritage is part of it. Right. Heritage is part of it. M.A.R.E is because it's about the connection of land and the sea. M.A.R.E from architecture, which is master, and M.A.R.E from sea, like M.A.R.E podcast. So I wanted to blend these two identities of mine, which are, I am an architect still at heart. I love architecture. I love planning. I love spaces. I love managing spaces. And M.A.R.E because now the ocean is the center of my career and my professional life and my academic life and my currently personal life. I love the sea. So yes, so the services at the moment, so M.A.R.E is still very young, still less than 2 years. I have been consulting for a long time, so over 10 years of random consultancies, but this just took shape recently. So the entities I work with, I will give you a few examples, like UNESCO Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission. I currently have a small project with WWF. We are working on a training in Tunisia for governmental officers on marine spatial planning. I do also teach I am a visiting lecturer, also funded by the Honor Trust Foundation at the American University of Beirut. So they're also funding a course on marine sciences and culture. It's a minor course at the university. So teaching and educating and disseminating knowledge is a big part. And there's a word in French, it's vulgarisation, but it's about simplifying knowledge to reach more people. So this is part of it. Another part of it is research. And for me, I think that I'm loving connecting different worlds together. So heritage and ocean literacy, or I even have a project on marine planning and offshore wind energy. So really trying to bridge all these gaps between worlds, between land and sea, between conservation and development, and it's all human centric. When I worked on offshore wind, in order to produce the publication, we talked with offshore wind experts. What do you need? How would you like to understand your role? And we talked with marine planners. And the same thing, with the Honor Trust, we're working on a project on oil and gas and marine archaeology. So we went to the Lebanese Petroleum Administration. We went to oil and gas companies, Total, Eni, I don't remember the names. And we're like, okay, you guys have very good tools that we can use. We don't want to stop you. We want to work with you. Let's do that. And this is also a lot of the work that's being done. It's putting people together to try to figure out ways forward. So a lot of small projects with foundations, with intergovernmental organizations, some universities, and hopefully more and more. So
Of course. So yeah, again, very important, because in the world of hyper specialization that we live in. Sometimes you just need people to bring the various groups, and I don't know, so if you want to call them stakeholders or anything, like together, and kind of have them in the same table and kind of work as a translator between all of them. And because obviously, if I sit at a table with an architect, we'll have very different views of things, and maybe we're not speaking the same language. But if someone like you, who is both an architect and knows a bit about archaeology and knows a bit about the ocean, and can bring together all these people, it's crucial, right?
Exactly.
It's super, super important. So kind of like I wanted to ask, is there any specific project that you worked on that is very dear to your heart, like your favorite or something like that?
Oh, oh wow, I need to scroll back to my. Okay, there are things that marked me, but there's maybe not such big projects, but marked my beginning. So, for example, when I started being independent, let's say, I worked on an archaeological display of artifacts and that are now on display at the airport of Beirut, the Beirut International Airport. So today, if you go to the Beirut International Airport, there are a couple of displays of archaeological artifacts of Lebanon, obviously. And that I always go like, oh, I worked on that. Like I was there when we put the items, I wrote the text, and that was very nice. Another one, so I worked on a couple of projects in Lebanon. So when you live away from home, you suddenly feel, you know, what you don't usually feel when you're at home, like, I want to do something there, you know, I want to be involved. I want to leave a trace. I don't want to be forgotten. And whenever I have the opportunity to do something in Lebanon or for Lebanon, I jump on it, even if it's for free. So one of the projects, which was with UNESCO IOC, was trying to, well, it was two part. One was about understanding how coastal communities perceive coastal risks and hazards. So people who are living by the coast, how do they live these hazards? How are they prepared for risks and hazards from the coast? So this entailed talking to a lot of locals, talking to a lot of experts to produce a very, you know, Lebanese tailored, let's say, document. And another one was organizing the first meeting on marine spatial planning in Lebanon. Lucky for me, it was COVID, so my, you know, in-person meeting got canceled 2 days before. But we still managed to do it online. We did it online. And I think it was one of the very first times that people from very different marine-related sectors come together to talk. And they were people from Ministry of Environment with fishermen, heritage experts with divers, you know. So it was, for me, it was very nice to put these people together. And so, yeah, unfortunately, COVID obviously ruined the vibe, but we still managed to do it, and we are building on it, hopefully. Yeah, I don't know if I have nothing else in mind at the moment.
It's wonderful initiatives, and it's so good to, if you've done so many things that you're like, I can't think of everything right now.
Well,
It's very encouraging.
I have a small one, and
Go ahead.
this was recently in Lebanon. So I was asked to give a session for kindergarten kids.
Oh, lovely.
And then me, you know, I'm like, I'm experienced. I'm a public speaker, you know, I make conferences in this country and this country, and I've done it in all languages. So I'm like, I went there, you know, kids are very hard. Kids are extremely hard. And they're kindergartens, like they're like, some of them are 3 and 4, you know, and then some of them actually speak. So I tried to make it very visual. I started putting very nice photos, and I wanted them to see that in Lebanon, we have a rich marine life. So there's a photo of me freediving with a turtle, a video of a whale that was spotted off the coast of Beirut. And I just started showing what we do have. And I remember like seeing the kids fascinated and asking questions. And it's funny to see the stereotypes they have, because they all wanted to know if we have sharks. And they're like, sharks. But the best part of that is that 6 months after that, so one of the kids was my friend's nephew, and it was like 6 months after, and he's 4, he's literally 4 years old. And she came and told me that today he went to his mom and he told her that, you know, this girl that knows a lot of things about the ocean, you know, I remember she told us there was an orca in Lebanon, and he was telling things that I mentioned 6 months ago in that session. So I was so emotional because you have more impact there, than producing a document or publishing a paper sometimes. So I was so happy about it.
Absolutely. Oh, that's immensely beautiful and rewarding and all that. But anyway, thank you so much for being with me and having this conversation. With everything you said, it's super important. And I hope people out there listening will contact you, and you can do more and more things to save our ocean and spread the knowledge about the ocean. So do you have any closing remarks? Anything you want to say for closing this episode?
No, thank you very much. So I wanted to say that for me, what helped me through my career and what helped me grow and what helped me reach opportunities is people. It's random people I met at a coffee shop, at a bar, at a conference. It's talking to people. It's someone mentioning something in front of me that stuck in my mind and resurfaced years after. It's that friendship you made at the conference, and then years later, they come up with a job opportunity and think of you. So everything that I mentioned in this, every opportunity was shaped by one person or two people that I met. And it's crucial. It's crucial. We cannot do this alone. You cannot have opportunities if you don't know people. And it's really, I used to don't like people for a long time. I was very much animal lover, nature. I hate humans. And then with time, I realized that humans are the key. They are the problem, but they're also the key for the answer. And every person you meet has a role in your life. Every person you meet can be the key for your next opportunity. So be nice, be kind, share your knowledge, share your knowledge. No one is going to take your spot. So share your knowledge, open doors for others, help others, answer that email of that student that wants to have an interview with you. Take some time to help others. And I think the world will be a much better place. So yeah, that would be like a piece of advice, let's say. Unrequested advice, but yeah.
No, it was very much requested. I asked you for it. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the M.A.R.E. podcast, and I'll see you on next time. Bye.